Hello, everyone. John Doyle from OptixEQ, and today I'm going to look at the late pick 5 from Belmont. This is Thursday, June the 16th, and it's like a pretty interesting sequence. Pretty good size fields. It's a late start at Belmont. I think they start at 3 p.m. on Thursdays, so it's kind of their evening card. And I thought we start with race 5 and kind of look at the early pace contention. His average speed rating is a little bit below average, so not too much pace in this race. So I probably first focus would be on horses in quadrant 1 right here. And some of the ones you can see kind of stand out are the 2, the 8. Those are the ones that kind of look interesting to me. So the other horse that looks like it's going to be forwardly placed here is a 3. There's a possibility the 3 is going to be forwardly placed. And I'll talk a little bit about him because he's a little bit different here. So let's go to the grid and let's start with the number 2. And this horse is, looks like a definite contender. This is a horse that's third off a layoff, right? So he had the 140 days, returned in the slop, ran a pretty good race despite having traffic, improved just incrementally 2 points in the second start when they move back to grass. Is in for the same tag. This horse has back numbers that are good, 91. Some numbers here too, in our 2-year in his 2-year-old season that with forward projection of good. This horse fits on all categories. The only thing I would say is, it depends on how much pace pressure he gets from the 2 and the 3 and the 8 and how that affects him. But a definite horse that you want to be including in your exotics here. The number 3 was the one I thought looked a little bit sneaky, at a price here. This horse is 15-1 in the morning line. Now, this horse debuted on the turf at Laurel. Okay, not the premier tracks in the country, but ran a huge B+. That always tells us this horse, there's more there. And there was, because this horse came back and ran at Belmont in the Futurity, a grade 3 stakes race sprinting, and ran an improved Optix figure of 85 as a 2-year-old. So we know now this horse is fast enough. Look at Optix figure range for this race is 80, 88. Okay, this horse is good enough. Kind of flop at Belmont in another non-graded stakes race the next out. Don't know if he regressed to what it was. Then came back in another non-graded stakes going longer and pretty good effort, B-, 83, so improved off of that. Then they tried dirt, and that's not what this horse wants to do. So was in a duel, kind of worked hard to get to the lead, and then kind of backed up. And so those couple of races could be hurting this horse's plot, especially some of this form is 2-year-old form. If you project though, this horse could be good enough. He's training pretty forwardly, and just looking at his raw workouts. They intended to look at a couple of races early on in the year. One was a stakes race, another allowance race. That got taken off the turf. The other one, the trainer decided otherwise. I guess you can see the notes here. It's great to have the scratch information. It's what we do in the Optix grid, so when the horse was scratched. It's right in the past performances. This horse is just a horse you don't want to leave off your tickets because he is good enough to win. Just don't know if he's all tightened up and ready to go today, but why not? I give him a shot at what's generous 15-1 in the morning line. The horse that I think is going to be the favorite, and it looks fairly legitimate here, is the number 8 Microphone. The thing is this is a Chad Brown horse, so you're not going to get any value. Broke maiden, and we thought this horse would improve off that Tampa race. Did, ran a big 94. Running second in optional claimer. They put him in an allowance race at Aqueduct, and you have this tactic here. So it didn't get the best of rides in that day. If you want to look at why, click the extended comments here. And it was subtle, but not sure why he moved there. Kind of made a premature move, took some starch out of him. So I think also about that is that the cut back to 7 furlongs is a positive thing. So Microphone, major player, probably the key horse in here. But I would look at the 2 and the 3. Another one I would look at, a horse that plotted pretty well from off the pace, because we kind of focused our horses that were on the pace, was Shiraz. This is a horse that's good enough to win on his day, fast enough. and also runs pretty well fresh. So let's look at some of these horses. 178-day layoff, a good 90, 201-day layoff, 87. There's another horse you might want to consider, especially from off the pace. If you're playing the race vertically, a horse you might want to include too. Coming off a big layoff, but like I said, proven off those layoffs too. So 2, 3, 5, and 7, 2, 3, 5, and 8. 8 looks like kind of the key in this race, but doesn't look like it's going to be much in the way of value. So that's race 5. Let's go back to the plot and look for race 6. So the race 6 looks like to me that it's a green plot fit. It's got high contention, high, average speed rating. Typically though, when I see a plot like this, which lines up really well along this horizontal, this slanted line here, I evaluate horses from left to right. So I would consider, if I find something wrong with the 3, but I would start with the 3 as the horse I would want to play and then go through. And as I did that, I kind of arrived at the number 4. Okay, because when I looked at the 3, he looks okay. Speed of the speed, just value wise. Looking at the circle, the size of the circle, and looking at the price, I moved on to the 7. The 7, you can see has some red marks here. I just kind of moved quickly through this, and then same thing with the 1A. Kind of some red marks. Last race was not good at a similar level. So I landed on the 4 as the first horse I really wanted to kind of evaluate. So let me clear this out, go to the grid, and go to number 4. And Big Bobby, okay, so this horse obviously had some talent early on, broke his maiden with a 98 OptixEQ, okay? That's pretty good. Then comes back, runs an allowance, decent race, second. No red marks on this horse other than a perfect trip win, 3rd time as an allowance horse. Then the horse tries the next level condition, was wide, ran a B-. Again, decent race. Comes back and then runs a race where this horse is completely against the bias for that day. Okay, it's still, so you can really excuse that race. Let me look at the extended comments here. Could not close on this track. Okay, so he was completely against the bias in that race. He's going to get some pace today. To sit right off. Those the 3, 7 should be sitting like the perfect trip, stalking those horses. And again, any kind of number like this wins it for him, like the 90s. There's no reason why this horse can't run at least low to mid 90s in this race with some improvement. Now, you worry about the 166-day layoff. I'm not looking at the way this horse, and let's just look at his workouts. We'll click this workout button here, see what his raw workouts look like. His workouts are trending pretty positively. He's had 5 works coming into this race. You can consider, some of these got a little bit of a stop. So starting from May 10th, good work, outstanding work on June the 4th. It was a workout that was 4 of 129 on the day. So I just think that's okay. They're trending positively. Lascano is the kind of guy, Vermont, that rides well. And I just think this horse fits and pretty much going to key around this horse in this race and in my pick 5s. But Big Bobby, for me in race 6, don't want to get too much more into this, but again, the evaluation was from left to right. Okay, so race 7, let's go to that race. Race 7, when you look at this race, I would say from a plot perspective, you got a high contention, high speed rating. You're looking for squares because look how these circles are kind of bunched up. So you're looking for squares. The 1, 2, and 3 fit. The 2 looks like the best value, just from a price perspective. Those are the horses I would lean on, 1, 2, and 3 in this race from off the pace. I thought the other horse that had a look, even though he's a circle, but he's the highest on the y-axis, is the number 7. Horse is coming off a little bit of a layoff. But I think that horse, let's look at the form so I can show you what I'm talking about. Let's go to number 7. Just thought this is another horse that comes from off the pace. So his plot's a little iffy because I guess he's been running against a little bit less. That's the only thing. He's kind of light in that. But it's a horse I just wouldn't leave off my tickets. Okay, just you're competitive number wise. Might have peaked, but been given some time, freshened up. Horse runs okay when he's freshened up. You can see this race here on May 31st of last year. He came back, ran a big number off a layoff. Just a horse I would include like kind of in the mix. But again, my focus is on those horses coming off the pace. It looks like 1, 2, and 3, and 2 looks like the best value. So I wouldn't spend that much more time on this race. Let's go to flip to race 8 as we wind down. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go in this race. The 9 really looks good. It's coming, I mean, looks good plot wise. When you look at this contention to speed rating, you would say the 1 and the 9 look pretty good, right? Just because they got that quadrant 1 cornered. Maybe a little bit number 2 slips in there too. I just think that the 9 has kind of declining form and getting a big drop from a grade 2, but he didn't do any running. See how that horse is played. 5 to 1 morning line, but I think he's going to be lower than that. I like the Clement better. This is a horse that looks like he's on the improve. When you get to the grid, you'll see it. Stakes race last time, ran it pretty good. And it just looks like a horse that's improving. I'm going to bet this horse either stalks the 1 and the 2 or gets in the pocket position or goes to the lead and tries to wire the field. Both scenarios, I think, will work for that horse, the number 1 Diamond Hands. And then the other horse that I thought, just because of the way the race kind of shaped up, was the 7 has the biggest kick. The number 7's the other Clement, just in case it gets a little bit heated. I'm going 1-7, all about Clement. The other horses are circles. The 3 is the other Chad Brown. You might consider, but that Tampa race came back really slow. It was not a good race. And so kind of against that horse. So me, I'm going with the 1 and the 7 and the Clement horses to get me through leg 4, race 8 at Belmont. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to just show you about the number 1 again, about the form. Okay, you can see that this horse, as a 2-year-old at Saratoga, ran good, 79, broke his maiden. So that was, you just with projection, this horse should be probably in the 90s, low 90s, upper 80s, low 90s. Came back, again, another improved effort in a stakes race, second off a layoff. Just with forward movement, this horse looks really difficult to beat in this race, okay? Okay, and then we're going to go to race 9. This race got all kind of whacked out with some of the scratches. Let me look at my notes here, see if I came up with anything that was interesting. Yeah, I mean, like the 9 looks okay. That's the Mike Maker horse. No knocks on him. Not crazy about the 8, even though he plots pretty good because he's kind of declining figures, second off a layoff. The 6, yeah, I don't know. I don't like his lines. They're a little bit troubling. I thought a horse that was a little bit interesting that might be a price to 2, even though he doesn't plot well on surface and distance. Let's look at the number 2. It's a tough race, okay? So I'm not sold on this race, especially looking at the plot. I hadn't seen it since the scratches. It kind of changed everything. But the 2 was a little bit remotely interesting. This is third off a layoff. Now, this horse is fast enough to win. Ran a really good number on the return race and then kind of regressed, but did have trouble. Wide trip, no cover, traffic, trouble. So if you could kind of ignore that race and this horse improves back to, some of these other numbers, and it's, that number 2 back would crush this field. Is a horse you might want to consider just at a price. Again, in a race that's a little bit shaky, but I think the horses that make sense are the 7 Supply Chain. He's okay. He's a brown horse that's looks okay, and then the 9 I thought looked like probably the horse to beat in this race. Third off a layoff. It's got some back numbers that would do very well here for Mike Maker. So yeah, I think he gets a little bit of a drop. Not a race I'm excited about, but probably using 2, 7, and 9. 9 looks most likely in this race. The only other thing, again, I evaluated this after. Yeah, I see the 7, got maybe a potential lead, or so. Yeah, 2, 7, 9 in race 9, and that's it for Belmont. We'll late pick 5 on Thursday. Good luck. Hopefully, I give you some information, give you mind thinking, that saying that you kind of land on all the stuff I gave you, but at least it gives you a way of thinking of things. And also for people that are using Optix, a way to understand how to apply the information. Okay. So hopefully that was all useful for you. And thanks for listening. And don't forget, check us out at OptixEQ.com. And that's it.